My guest today, Jason Wittrock, also known as the Blood Sugar King, is a personal trainer and bodybuilding champion. He specializes in weight loss and blood sugar control, unlike many of his peers who are more focused on calorie counting. I originally found Jason on Instagram, where he shares tons of experiments that he does with his continuous glucose monitor, testing all sorts of foods and meals. So naturally, I wanted to get Jason on the show to talk about his experience with all these experiments and what he has learned. In this episode, Jason challenges the idea of calorie counting and also emphasizes how important it is to have muscle when it comes to blood sugar control. We talk about surprising foods that spike blood sugar, as well as debunk some popular nutrition myths out there. We also talk about the number one food for satiety, that means helping you feel full after you eat, reducing cravings, and helping to control your blood sugar. And finally, we dive into the challenges of restricting sugar for children and how challenging it is for kids to eat healthy nowadays. Plus, we talk about strategies to help improve kids' diets and what is needed for this future generation. Speaking of kids, you're definitely going to want to earmuff them during this conversation because there is a little bit of cursing in this episode. I just wanted to warn you ahead of time. But stick around. You are going to love this episode with Jason Wittrock. All right, Jason, I'm so excited to welcome you to I apparently don't know the name of my own podcast, to the Unlock the Sugar Shackles podcast. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I do like the name though, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I know that you have been dubbed the blood sugar king, and I have actually been called by many the blood sugar queen. So it's
All right. Well,
it's kind of funny. Yeah. Where'd that come from?
I feel bad. I gave myself a name, and I've never, ever been one to like give myself names, but it actually came because I was in the keto space for a long time, and I was fortunate to be like one of the first, I guess, fitness people to get into keto.
Yeah.
And so everybody kind of called me the keto king, and I hated it. Like I just didn't like it, but I was just known as the keto king. And anytime, so once I kind of got out of keto and started getting into blood sugar, I'm like, I'm just going to call myself blood sugar king and make it hilarious. And I didn't think it would go anywhere, but it was just like, why not? Just like get myself out of the keto king role and just go into blood sugar. I like it better, but yeah, so I guess that's where that came from.
Yeah, that's funny. So I used to do keto as well, and I never associated myself like with a handle or anything like that. I was about to, because it
Yeah,
can get real tempting to like
I
hitch
know.
your whole
Everybody
identity
do
to your
this. Yeah,
diet.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I was about to do something like that, and I'm like, no, let's just stick with blood sugar. And then I really, went down the route of blood sugar, and I'm happy that I did. So I'd love to just sort of back up to just opening with your story. So how did you even get involved with blood sugar? What made you start tracking? What made you get into keto?
Well, keto, I got into keto because this goes years and years and years back, before it was even popular, like mainstream. I was a competitive bodybuilder. I was one of the top fitness models in the country at this time. I'm 43 now, so this is like when I was like late 20s, okay? Like this is a long time ago, back when I was something. No, and I was always competing, always having to stay in shape. Companies could call and say, my sponsors, get on a plane now. You got to do a photo shoot like that. You don't have time to mess around. You always have to be in shape. So I was always trying different diets out, right? Trying to like not suffer and still live a normal life. And it was very difficult. But I got an opportunity to work with kids who suffer from mental illness in Atlanta, Georgia. And these are kids that fly from all over the country, and they stay at this place in Atlanta. It's like a campus for mentally ill kids. And they brought me in as a trainer, and they were running this big study on what's called metabolic syndrome, Syndrome X. And my only job was to train them in the gym. And then they had a diet protocol that they were following. The problem is all of the kids took a medicine to combat a lot of the effects of the mental illness and stuff that they have, like schizophrenia and things like that, bipolar. They took these medicines that made them gain 40 pounds in like a month and would just mess up their blood panels. And so this study was to see if diet and exercise can mitigate a lot of those negative effects of the medication. So like I said, and I won't go into it, but like training these kids was life altering for me. I was in the superficial bodybuilding, look at me, blah, blah, blah. And then you see kids with mental illness lifting weights and how much it does for them was a total 100% change in my paradigm forever. But while I was there, I learned that they were putting these kids on what's called a ketogenic diet. I had never heard of it before, and I'm hearing rumors like I'm talking to the kids, what'd you eat? And they're high fat. And this was a true keto diet, unlike a lot of what it's become lately. This was like 80, 90% fat sometimes, depending on the case. And I was blown away. And I was a bro back then, counting calories, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking these people are going to kill these kids. And I'm going through this radical mind, I can't curse on this, but it was a radical mind shift. Okay, and I had to literally question everything that I had learned, everything that was in the industry at the time, and so long story short, that study ended. These kids lost weight. They're whole all across the board, huge successful program. It was published, all this crazy stuff, and I was like, I got to try this diet. Like I just have to. And you couldn't find any info on the internet. If you typed in ketogenic diet, all you got was ketoacidosis definition. Talking about, there was no programs, no influencers. It was a barren wasteland. It was literally how it was in the 20s, because it came out in like late 20s, early 30s. You could only find literature from back then, and I was only able to get it through the medical facility that I used their info. So I did it the right way, and it changed my whole career, mainly because when you're in the fitness industry, you have to be shredded year round. The only way to do that, don't care what anybody says, you have to reduce carbohydrates. And back then, I was taught that if you're going to cut carbs, you got to bump protein through the roof because you don't want to lose muscle. And that's what I was doing, living a low-carb life, absolutely miserable. The minute I cut the carbs and increased the fat, my energy came back, and I felt like I had a huge competitive advantage. My mental clarity was back. And I took that, didn't tell anybody about it because it's very, it's just the way we are in the industry. Like I felt like I literally found like the holy grail, and I said nothing to anybody. I started putting my clients on it, and then I honestly will say that I never really, in the very, very, very beginning, would have predicted keto would blow up. I thought it was people couldn't handle it, because all the stuff I had to go through to change my mentality, I was like, no way people are going to be able to do that. They're going to be scared of fat. It had so many obstacles, but it blew up, and with it, I blew up because I was out there now on YouTube. I got big sponsors. Bodybuilding.com sponsored me just to kind of talk about keto and all these big companies. So that's how I got into keto. And then I was like a 3-year, 4-year run through the whole keto stuff. I saw it from the beginning, and I hate to say it, I kind of saw it to the end. I don't want to say it's the end, but it's changed so much. It was like that a little bit. And the blood sugar, sorry, I might be just rambling here, but
No, keep going. It's great.
So I had kind of exited keto. In my opinion, I had kind of adapted the ketogenic diet so much that it wasn't true keto. I didn't feel right saying that I was doing keto because I was taking in carbohydrates around my workouts. I was trying different things. After doing it for 4 years, I didn't want to be strict anymore. So I kind of exited out of keto. And then this company, NutriSense, because I get companies that just send me stuff all the time. The Lumen, the blah, blah, blah. You probably are the same way. It's like, okay, cool. I'll try it. I put it on, and I was just kind of like,
The continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah, the continuous glucose monitor. I put it on, and I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, this is cool. But I didn't have my aha moment at that point. I wore it for 2 weeks, and then the company reached out to me again, like, hey, did you try it? And I'm like, yeah, and they're like, telling me more. I made them send me another one, and I tried it again, and then I had the aha moment. I'm like, oh my God, like this is why keto works, because you're controlling blood sugar. I started thinking about it more. I'm like, that's why keto works, is because fat doesn't spike blood sugar. Obviously, carbs are down, and my numbers on keto days were like this, just a flat line. Then I did carnivore on it, and I'm like, boom. And then I would do a regular day of eating with carbs, and all of a sudden I saw the things. Even OMAD, like if you think about it, all the successful diets work because of the low blood sugar. Carnivore, OMAD, intermittent fasting, same exact thing. It works because you're not spiking blood sugar first thing in the morning, going longer periods of time with that balance. And I had the holy shit moment, like, this is why all the successful diets, this is the linchpin, this is the core, this is the root. And the funny thing was, all those years when I was on keto, I didn't even think about measuring blood sugar. All I cared about was measuring ketones. Yeah, and I'm like, wow. And so I was like, okay. And then I look at it and I'm like, oh damn, this thing's like $350, right? So, and I've got a nephew who had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I've got diabetes clients, and I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to guinea pig myself. I'm going to test as many foods as I can. I'm just going to throw them out there. I didn't think it would take off. I didn't really care. I was just like, let me just see and show people some shocking stuff. And it just took a life of its own, and here we are. So
Yeah,
it was a perfect segue. Like,
absolutely. I love it. And I love all these elements of your story going back to that like true ketogenic diet, that medical ketogenic
yeah,
diet is very, very, very high fat. And that's really to help with a lot of neurodegenerative diseases, like neurological issues, epilepsy, all sorts of things like that. But you said that you started switching keto. So you started changing it a little, personalizing it to you, which of course I think you should do because
yeah,
you are not someone who fits into the category of needing 80 to 90% fat
correct,
because that's just not really appropriate for you and your activity goals. So can you
correct.
tell us how you modified it to you and what that looked like?
Yeah, so the most important thing, and I'm glad I did it because now that I do the same strategy now, only I call it the blood sugar diet. um, and I can see, I basically strategically use carbohydrates. Now, with the continuous glucose monitor, I did find carbohydrates that did not cause a big spike that when I was on keto, I had no idea. Like berries, for example. Like I wouldn't have touched them on keto. I just was super strict. There was a lot, and so all the vegetables, the nuts and seeds, I would have eaten more of. But I found specifically that after I exercise, taking in carbohydrates, spiking blood sugar, which when you spike blood sugar after you work out, it's actually a benefit because insulin comes out, but insulin takes that blood sugar and stores it inside the muscle cells. Insulin partitions, it prioritizes muscle cells first, fill up the glycogen, and as long as you don't eat too many, in the bodybuilding industry, we call that spillover. Right? So like you cut, and right before a show you want to eat a bunch of carbs, like 24 hours before a show. But if you go too far, if you eat too many carbs, you get what's called spillover, where insulin then stores it inside the fat. So I would just take carbs, now good carbs, sweet potato, and I still do to this day, sweet potato, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, banana, those kind of carbs, purposely spike my blood sugar after my workout, help recover, fill the glycogen. 2-3 hours later, blood sugar comes back down and I'm back into ketosis, rocking and rolling. So I'm basically only spiking blood sugar once a day. That's kind of what I challenge people with now. Is the blood sugar diet is your only the diet that I'm about to release here soon. Is you're only allowed to spike blood sugar once a day. And I just personally feel that like if you can get a person, the average person, as you know, because you talk to all your clients, all your friends, without even knowing it, they're spiking blood sugar 3-4 times a day.
I would say more than that.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
that's generous.
Yeah,
Honestly,
probably.
like if you look at people, the average person, they did some study where they looked at how many times the average person is just putting something in their mouths that has calorie that's not just like plain water. And it's
Mhm.
something like 28 times a day, 38 times, it's some number like that. And if I think back to how I was before I found all this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, easily. It was
Yeah.
like some of my coffee that had, milk and sugar in it or whatever, and then I'd have breakfast, and then I'd grab a handful of almonds, and then I'd have another coffee, and then I'd have a
Yep.
little, bite of my granola bar, and it was just this grazing all day. So every time you do that, you're spiking your blood sugar. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
really,
And it's
really
worse
important. So
because
that
you spike. It's worse because you spike it. It doesn't even have a chance to come back down before you go up
exactly,
again. And it's like so. So I just
yeah.
personally believe my new mission coming out in the new year: get as many people as I can to commit to only spiking blood sugar once a day. And the perfect ideal time to do it is obviously after a workout. But even if you don't work out and exercise, I believe if you can just spike once a day, that's it. Then you'll be good. And I feel like. Yeah, so I feel like people can't do it. Knowledge is important,
Yeah.
as to what does spike blood sugar and things like that. And everybody's different, but yeah, I just it's
Yeah.
it's it's been
So
great.
that one time a day after a workout, I think is really, really powerful. And you talked about how these kids had this syndrome X, metabolic syndrome. Did you know? Because most people didn't know or don't know. I didn't know. I just recently heard it on a podcast from Ben Bickman that
Yeah, he's a great dude.
metabolic, he's amazing, that
Yeah,
metabolic syndrome used to be called insulin resistance syndrome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I did actually know that. Yeah,
why aren't they saying this though, right? Like
I
if
know.
we knew that, we would say like, oh, what is insulin resistance? Like, oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is a
yeah. You
thing. This
almost
is something that, yeah, it would
why put
guide
a
it a
mask
little
on?
more.
Why put a mask on it? Call it what it
Yeah.
is. Maybe they thought it was just gonna like make it more popular because you give it some cool name, Syndrome X. You know, it became Syndrome X is what they always referred to it in the when I was at the study, Syndrome X. Nobody knows
Yeah.
what the hell that is, and it's like
No.
five different things that you categorize in, but it all based is based in insulin resistance, and it just sucks that a lot of this stuff. You know, I hate my whole career I've railed against calorie counters. I've gone to war with many influencers. Okay, like big time.
Yeah.
Um, and I just sometimes look at them like I just think to my man, how easy it must be just to tell somebody, just eat less food and go work out more. It's not that complicated, bro. You know, and then here we are having to explain what insulin resistance is, why blood sugar matters, and get into these nuances and actually understand it and get people to understand what's actually happening. You know, it's been a struggle, but it's worth the fight. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, for these
Absolutely.
guys that are like, you just go out and eat whatever you want. A calorie, bro. Like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're in a caloric deficit. I'm just like, oh, God, it makes me.
Yeah.
I used to be there in my brain back when I was, you know, dumb and young. And it's like, no, man, you're misleading people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It is very frustrating to see that because that makes people we obviously know that hormones, the insulin is a hormone, and a lot of other hormones are what is really triggering a
Yeah.
lot of, fat depositing. And just like you said, if there's too much insulin, it will spill over and get stored in the fat. So it is like this, so much of this is mediated by hormones and not by the amount that 1 gram of food will raise
Yeah.
like
You go over
water.
by
Like we're,
you go over by 20 calories, you're screwed. You know what's funny about all those people? They act like they understand. Like you have calories in versus calories out. I'll go on a little rant here real quick. Calories in, calories out, right? That's it. That's all there is to it. And then so these people, these poor helpless people who just want to lose weight, call people like us that are influencers, but all they, they're like, hey, go to my calorie counter, my macro calculator on the internet and find out how many calories you need, right? And they these trainers, these guys, they will literally sit and tell, hey Danielle, I've got your height, your weight, your activity level, and blah 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 blah. I suggest you eat 1,735 calories. Like that's mind blowing that you can just throw a number out every single day. Now here's the problem. Here's the problem. That's calories in. Calories out is a dynamic number. It changes dramatically every single day. Come work out with me and eat 1,700 calories and see what you do the next day. You're done, right? So it's like you got a number in static, but then this number changes dramatically. You'd have to literally formulate your calories on a daily basis. That's the part I don't understand. These trainers know how many you get in, but they never understand, never know how many are coming out. They're not taking in all the biological processes that burn up calories. There's so many factors just to simplify it. And I get mad and angry because a lot of people that have tried to lose weight before, they lose hope. They're like,
yeah.
they're like, hey, I did 1,700 calories and then I went through this crazy workout and I quit the next day. No shit, because your body needed more calories to. If you eat less, move less. That's it, right? Like that's what's gonna happen. I don't know. So I don't.
Yeah.
I'm doing this fight. It's the calorie counters and stuff. It's old news. As you can, and with the CGM stuff, woo man, they came after me. I was getting hate mail on the daily from. I was triggering all the calorie counting influencers like crazy, and they'd be dumb enough to share my videos with their audience. And I'm like, you guys are like doing my job for me. You're like helping people question, like, like they got so defensive, so wrong. Like, how could this guy be wearing a continuous glucose monitor and tell everybody that blood sugar it matters when it comes to losing weight? It's all about calories. And I'm like, gotcha. Like,
Yeah.
like they really like questioned their beliefs and they just fired off and started attacking me. And I think it actually helped spread the message.
Right.
So,
And I
yeah.
hear you so fired up about this
Oh
because
yeah.
you, like me, we see people suffering because of this advice that keeps being perpetuated, and they keep like this group of people, these calorie counting zealots, are not looking at other things, saying like, oh, these things matter. We're not saying that calories do not matter
Yeah.
at all. They
I know
matter.
if you starve yourself,
A,
you're going to lose weight. I'm not arguing
yeah.
with that.
Yeah, right. Like, but they matter in a small amount, but not to the extent that these people are saying. And just like you said, our output changes all the time, and our basal metabolic rate for women the week before our cycles, because we have more progesterone, we have a higher burning rate of calories. So that's
Yeah.
not taken into account. It's not taken into account like a day of laying on the couch watching Netflix versus a day of hiking all day and, running errands and doing workouts. Like, it's a really vastly different thing.
100%. And I get so fired up. A lot of it came from like the keto stuff. Like I went to war with all that, trying to convince people that a calorie is not a calorie and that's not all that matters. But then I had kids, and then it really started to make me angry when these people were talking. Because if you think about it, childhood obesity is skyrocketing. You go to the grocery store and you see a kid, or anywhere, a school, anywhere, kids are fat these days. And it's sad. And my point is, there's no way the kid across the street from me that my son plays with that is obese, there's no way he got that way because he eats 10,000 calories a day and does nothing. Okay? He is not a sloth. He's not over there pounding 10,000. What he is doing is he's eating sugar all day long, drinking juice all day long, spiking blood sugar. I don't care how many calories he eats, he's spiking blood sugar, like you said, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. I see my kids' lunches, they're garbage. You thought it was bad when we were kids, it's even worse now. I got an email from the school the other day like, hey, happy to announce we're going to start serving Uncrustables as a snack. And I'm like, bro, you just sold out to big business. So my point is, next time you look at a kid, if you think that kid got fat because he ate 10,000 calories every day, you're wrong. He got that way because he's eating the wrong types of calories. And you know what else is interesting? Last point. You know what else is interesting? I hope people are still listening because this is important. The fattest people, the most overweight people, and diabetic people in this country are the poor people. It is fact. Go look it up. The less income you make, the more you suffer financially, the fatter you are. And it's because all you can do, so you can't say that some person that's has hardly any money at all is out there eating 10,000 calories and just spending all kinds of money on food and eating tons of food. They can barely afford food. They get food stamps, and what do? They go get processed and refined, cheap carbohydrates because that's all they can afford to eat. And
because those are the ones that are subsidized by the government. And in
Yep.
food pantries, the option for protein is often peanut butter. That is not a protein source, that is a fat source. And so
with sugar.
yeah,
Too.
with sugar. Yeah, they're going to have the hydrogenated oils and sugar added in these types of peanut butters. That's not the, organic one. But it is a very true, sad reality that socioeconomic status is really determining who is able to have a healthy body weight. And it's really sad. And this information, like, really, unfortunately, the continuous glucose monitor is expensive. Healthy food is expensive. But there are options that are better options that people can make if they had the knowledge, right? We can't always make the best options, but you and I both give tons of free content in helping people to make better decisions, even if they can't get a continuous glucose monitor. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's a really important point as well. And let's dive into just kind of what you're finding on your CGM. So on your Instagram page, you test all sorts of foods and food combinations on your continuous glucose monitor. And you are obviously a fit person. You're a male. You're not, a postmenopausal woman. And you're not sedentary. So that makes a big difference.
I'm a genetic freak. Let's just be honest about it. Like I can eat as many carbs as I want mostly and not really get fat. Like I'll never be fat. Like I'm the opposite of insulin resistant. I'm hyper insulin sensitive. Okay. Always have been. That's why I can build muscle easily, or why I don't gain fat easily. And just genetics, lucky, right?
And also all the training that you've done and all the muscle that you have is contributing to that as well. So
I'm just not afraid to admit that, like, I was born lucky versus somebody that's just born insulin resistant. Like, it's not their fault. You can be born insulin resistant. It's not your fault. Like, you're gonna have to deal with it still, but it's, you can be
My
born.
genetics are very much tending towards insulin resistance. Like I have
Yeah,
to fight that all the time.
yeah.
However, I'm not active, and that's something I'm working on changing because I
Oh,
fell off from it because I've gotten a bunch of injuries. And so what I'm noticing is that I think that there's a huge difference between someone who is what I call like in a healing phase. So like
yeah,
someone who's got insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, like I had PCOS and all the hypoglycemia. I had to be in this healing phase. I had to be really strict.
yeah,
And then there's more of like a maintenance phase where people can get away with having a little bit more, having some more carbs and things like that. But within that maintenance phase, what I've done is sort of pulled these two out. It's like maintenance and inactive and maintenance and active. And you get so much less leeway when you don't have muscle, when you're not using up all the fuel that you're putting in your system.
yeah.
So this is a huge piece of this. And I like, yes, genetically you're blessed, but you also have put in a lot of work. Like you are always probably working out. You did a
Yeah.
lot of fitness training. You have a lot of muscle. And so I do want people to feel empowered that this is something that we can change. There's a lot that is in our control. So, yeah.
Yep.
So tell us
Well said.
about,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. And so I guess circling back to what your
sure.
question was, I started testing foods, and in the back of my head knew that like, if this is spiking my blood sugar, then it's deadly for some people.
Yeah.
Like mine are bad. The thing about mine are they go down
Mm-hmm.
before 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll spike, but it'll be down in an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas most people, they'll spike and it won't come down till 3, 4 hours later because insulin's having a harder time doing its job.
Yep.
Right? That's the trick. Or that's the problem. It's insulin
Mm-hmm.
resistance. You spike blood sugar, insulin comes out, and the cells are like, nope, they resist the insulin. It's like a key that goes in and unlocks it, but my key goes in, boop, opens the door. Most people's, they try and open it, the key doesn't work, it gets dull. So what's the pancreas do? It secretes even more insulin. That's why you don't get so I've gotten away with you know and then, the other thing about the testing that I've done, because I've tested almost 200 foods, believe it or not. A
Wow.
lot of times I'll do a food test and it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like my blood sugar will raise like 25 points, which I guess is kind of bad. But I know, so I kind of go out there and I'm like, yeah, hey, I mean, it's not like the worst because I've had some that are like way high.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of regret it because in the back of my head, I'm like, man, it's not bad for me, but this would be bad for other people. But
Yeah.
it's been a fine line of how bad do I make this seem
Mm-hmm.
versus people in the comment section like, oh, that's not bad. It's like, yeah, because it's me. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be bad. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
can't be like cocky. Like, that's not cocky either, by the way. That's just me being real. Like, but yeah, it's
So,
been,
Jason, I have a question. Have you ever tested, like, do you notice a trend between different times of the day? So, like, breakfast versus lunch versus dinner, do you notice where you have the tendency to spike more?
in the morning.
In the morning.
Yeah,
Interesting.
100%. And
Wow.
I've noticed that if I spike blood sugar in the morning, let's say I eat like cereal, I don't eat
Hmm.
for a test, and I
Yeah.
spike, and then I eat another food that I know is going to spike a few hours later, it doesn't spike up as much. And you know why I think
Probably
that
because
is?
there's the insulin still in your
There's tons of
system.
insulin already in my bloodstream.
Yes. Wow.
And then,
So the
yeah,
insulin takes a longer time to come down than blood sugar
yeah,
does. So when you were saying before, when someone's eating all day long and their
yeah,
blood sugar doesn't even have a chance to come down before they spike again, same thing with insulin and even worse. So we're just
yeah.
piling on this insulin all day long if we're snacking.
Danielle, you know what I really wish? I really wish that there were two lines on those graphs, one for
Oh my
blood sugar and
gosh.
one for. And there's currently no way, I don't think, to continuously measure. You have to go to the hospital and do it.
Hmm.
But that would be fascinating, and that would
Can't
really.
wait for that.
I know, because that would really show the real true picture. We're in black and white right now, and I feel like
Yeah.
color is coming.
Yeah.
But for now, you just kind of got to guess what your insulin's doing, and but
Yeah.
there's some that kind of thing makes me realize like, oh wow, that's because there's a ton of insulin in my bloodstream from that first meal. Um,
Yeah. That's
If you,
interesting. So my blood sugar spikes more. It's way worse if I eat in the evening. So as the sun is going down, especially after the sun is down, my blood sugar will spike high and stay high. It's like my insulin clocked out. It's like we're done. So that's what I tend to notice with a lot of my clients at that dinner time. So
yeah,
I recommend for them to not have carbs at dinner. Some people, depending on what they're going through, is like taking out the carbs at dinner because it causes them the biggest spikes. And then for a lot of my clients who have hypoglycemia, it'll cause those bigger crashes. And
yeah.
so they stay a lot more stable in the evening time. I can eat things with carbs in the morning and I get no spike whatsoever. If I eat that same meal at night, I might have a spike.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hardcore. Okay, like I have to be. They're coming up in the fitness industry. Like it's very brutal. I am like no bullshit. Like, but I put on this like when I'm dealing with people, like kind of take it off, and I just. But I'll tell you the honest to God truth. I don't think you should be eating carbs at all unless you work out. I look at carbohydrates as a performance enhancing food, and it's like rocket fuel. You do not get to eat carbs unless you earn them, first of all, and have a reason to be eating them. That is just like, in my opinion, I have no necessity at all for carbs unless it's to serve my body a benefit. And outside of that, I see no benefits for carbohydrates at all. They cause inflammation. They make you store fat. So like, but I know that's too hardcore and strict for most people. But
I think
you
there's also caveats for women for
no
cycling women.
maybe yeah maybe
We have we have a
my
delicate hormonal balance.
yeah I know
But
yeah
I still think you're right that every human being needs to be moving. I think
yeah
that that's the piece that we could both agree on, that every human being needs to be active and moving and building
yeah
muscle, because after 35, if you're not actively building muscle, it's actively deteriorating. You're losing it. Like we are losing muscle at a faster rate than we're putting it on.
am I losing light in here?
Think you
am I
are.
too, am I too dark?
That's fine.
Sorry, the sun's going down.
All good.
Hey, my point is, I guess that those carbs will taste so much better after a workout, after you got done working out. You will tell yourself, I earned it. You'll think less. You won't think twice about eating it. You'll know it'll be a benefit. It's going into the muscle. You will not have any guilt at all. Trust me. And okay, I'm serious. Try it. Like, go work out. Go do whatever you want to do. I don't even care. You don't have to work out like a maniac like me. You just go run a jog. You can go ride a bike, go swimming, go play a sport, do whatever. Do whatever. Get your ass moving and earn your carbs and use them strategically. But I know that's kind of advice a lot of people might be like, yeah, like he's just crazy. That's just crazy. But that's just the way I honestly see it.
I
Is
think that's really honestly fair advice. I think
yeah,
that it's not that you have to earn it because you worked out and you're a better person, but it's
yeah,
literally earning it for like having it make sense, because you're
yeah,
taking in, like you said, like this rocket fuel. Carbs are this like explosive
yeah,
fuel. And so if
yeah.
we're taking in all this fuel and not using
Get
it, it's
around.
making
What
us
are you
sick.
doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. It's like I see athletes, people are like, oh yeah, what about athletes eat all these carbs and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, duh, they're performance enhancing foods.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're for. Quick burst of energy.
Yeah.
Not let's just like quick burst of energy and sit in the parking lot all day long.
Right.
Right?
So,
Like race the
yeah.
car.
So, okay, let's talk about some specifics of things that you have tested on your CGM. In general, what are some foods that have spiked you that you've
Surprise me.
been surprised about?
It's so hard to say because I really had a pretty keen idea of what was going to spike and stuff.
Okay, so what are some of the ones that have spiked you quite a bit then?
Oh, you better stay away from like the Gatorades, the sodas. That'll kill your ass so fast. It's crazy, mind blowing stuff. White potato was shockingly high as well. Um, um, any type of just pure sugar. I've done the candies and all that stuff. I think the most surprising test was the cooled rice experiment that I did. White rice will spike, but if you refrigerate it for 24 hours and then reheat it, it had a much lower impact. That did not work for bread. It did not work for pasta. Did you see that video? You're aware of that?
I'm aware of the resistant starch concept. I think I saw that one. Did you try it with potato?
Yeah, it didn't work.
Didn't work. So it only
No, and
worked with the
I didn't try
rice.
it with actually, I tried it with sweet potato and it made it worse. I think the sugar kind of like caramel. I don't know what happened. It even tasted sweeter when I had it refrigerated for 24 hours and then reheated. It tasted like more sweet. Yeah, so it made the sweet potato work.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and pasta, same. The only thing it worked on was the rice. Interestingly, brown rice and white rice. So that was interesting. I'll tell you the truth, though. I had a lot of people since I started this thing ask me about, and it was one of the first few tests I did, and I did it multiple times. This food order stuff. I don't know where you stand on this if you've tested it before in your life, but it's total bullshit in my opinion. And I've tried it so many times because so many people ask me. That's basically this idea, I guess, that you're supposed to eat your vegetable first, then the protein, and then the carbohydrate, right? First thing I'm thinking is you're setting people up for an eating disorder. Okay, I'm praying to God it doesn't work, because if it did, you got a bunch of people with disordered eating. I just think it's bad. But it didn't work at all. And have you heard of it before? Like this whole method?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And have you tried it?
I have tried it and I have not found it to be super successful. I haven't done a specific experiment where I tried like just the carbs and then had things first and then tried the carbs after. But if I have carbs after I have protein, fat, and fiber, I still get a spike from
Yes.
those carbs.
Yes.
And then, yeah. And what we talked about is that what's happening is that that's actually increasing your insulin. By
Yes.
having those things first, it is actually increasing your insulin and it reduces the insulin clearance. So it's actually arguably not much better for you.
It's one of those phenomenons that I found, and the only reason why is because so many people, like I would test, like I would eat like food, and they'd be like, "Oh, try eating this first and this first." And I'm like, "What the?" Like, okay, I'll do it, and it's not going to work, and then I do it again and again and again, and it makes no sense to me logically, because I'm sitting here eating a meal, and it's going into my stomach in less than 10 minutes. Okay, so I
So,
mean, you tell
so the
me.
way that it works is that it slows digestion. One of the things that happens is that, especially the presence of the fiber and the fat, they slow digestion, and that
Okay.
allows the blood sugar to go into the system a little bit slower, so that the insulin has a chance to work on it faster. So
Yeah.
some of those like high sugary things, it's just like boom, they just hit your bloodstream and it's just off, like the Gatorades, the sodas, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. 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 No.
So the idea of slowing digestion, and that's the same thing with apple cider vinegar, it slows the digestion. So
It
that's
delays.
how it helps to blunt that blood sugar spike. So I do think that there is some value in this for some people at certain times. However, I think that what we talked about in DM, and like what, this idea that people think that protein, fat, and fiber erases
Yeah. No.
carbs. They think that like, oh, you can totally have a giant, ice cream sundae for dessert.
Yeah.
It's
There's
no
protein, fat, and
problem.
carbs in McDonald's burger, so I mean,
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't really help
right?
that
Right?
much.
Yeah.
But and what I tell my clients to do now is I say eat all your protein first, because I think protein is the most important macronutrient, and it helps people stabilize their blood sugar so much, feel more full. And so if they eat all that protein first, where they literally can't take another bite of protein, they're going to have space for all those other things on their plate. The broccoli, the sweet potato, there is space. But I think that many people are drastically under eating protein. So it's a really good way to get people to have to kick on those natural satiety mechanisms, where they are not over consuming, because protein, you really can't over consume protein that much, because you just get that
Body has
shut
it.
off.
That's why keto works so well, is because the fat and the protein, very
Yeah.
satiating, triggers these primal, mechanisms in the body, and so, you
Yeah.
literally could not overeat on keto if you tried. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did something like oatmeal do to your blood sugar? Because some
It
people
was,
are
it
like,
was,
oatmeal is so good for diabetes.
yeah, right, dude. If you got type 2 diabetes or insulin resistant, don't eat oatmeal. Like, you got to be serious with people at a certain point. It's like, dude, you can't mess with oatmeal. Okay, don't eat it. Eat some eggs, some sausage, some bacon. Forget about the oatmeal. Forget about the cereals. Like, stop lying to yourself. Oatmeal is going to spike blood sugar. It spikes mine about 25 points. Yours will be worse. I mean, and there's no, in my opinion, I tried the steel cut. What about this? The low sugar version and all that stuff. Dude, I mean, the body just simply doesn't care. It's carb and it's processed already. So because it's been processed already in a factory, when it gets into your stomach, the stomach doesn't have to do anything with it. And I think that makes oatmeal, you know, I'm not saying oatmeal's not healthy, whatever.
But there's 93% of people who shouldn't be eating it.
It's garbage. Feed it to the birds, in my opinion. I come from the bodybuilding world, and everybody was all about oatmeal. I just am like, dude, what nutrition's in oatmeal? I don't even know. Like
a little bit of fiber, some B vitamins, but
yeah.
You can get those things other places without all the carbs. And I think that's what people don't realize. It's like we don't have to do this giant carb bomb to, you know, in order to get these foods in. Like there's foods that also have other good fiber sources that are not going to spike your blood sugar. So what about something like, have you done a comparison between like brown rice and white rice? Same spike.
Pretty
so
much,
there's so many people.
From what I remember, pretty much identical.
Yeah, and so this is where I think a lot of confusion comes in, because people will say like, eat slow carbs. And it's like, so the rice bran just takes an extra second to digest in your gut. It's not that slowed, right?
Yeah, no, that's another myth. And it's sad, you know, like eat the whole grain. Whole grain bread's going to wreck you. Trust me. Real quick.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? It is all this talk that I'm giving, all this back and forth, that's all positive. I have 3 kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And even I struggle to keep these foods away from my children. And it is, if you don't think sugar is a drug, give it to a kid and try and take it away from them right away. Like, and it's also shocking to me how many holidays, birthdays, every holiday is somehow centered around sugar. And I never really realized how bad it was until I have kids of my own. Like, you think about all the holidays. We just went through Halloween, Christmas, Easter, all these. And then like so-and-so, my kid's like 4 and she eats like probably 300 grams of sugar at preschool. I swear to God. Every day it's somebody's birthday. They're feeding them candy and all this stuff.
And then if you were to say like, oh, I don't want my kid to be eating this, what is your kid going to do? Like go to the office while everyone else is having fun? It's such a hard thing because it's so embedded. I have friends who are like up against this as well. Like trying, like sugar makes our kid like bounce off the walls and like, and you know, people are just handing things to the kids and not asking the parents. And then you can't, like you said, try taking it out of their hands. They throw a tantrum. They're so upset. They don't understand.
My 4-year-old daughter is so hooked. Like she's like, I have to literally, I'm braced. I'm kind of like easing into it, but she is hooked. She will think about candy all day long. If she knows it's in the house, she's like a little addict. And this is my kid. And I have to say, no, stop asking. Luckily, my kids only drink water. They don't have the whole like juice problem, like the whole stuff. Like, for example, I brought oatmeal and I had the low sugar version. And my wife's like, yeah, just let him have oatmeal. Don't be such a hard ass. Like, let him have oatmeal. And I'm like, okay, cool, fine. Because I make him eggs every single morning. I'm like eggs, bacon, sausage. Like, I'm the guy. I'm being strict, but I'm going to hook you up, man. I'm cooking the good stuff. You know what I mean? But so I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. I'll crash. And I'll get her the low sugar oatmeal stuff every single morning after that. I need oatmeal. And if she doesn't get it, she's losing her shit. You know, it's like, it's scary. And, you know, I can kind of predict, because I've tested so many different foods, that I can watch my child eat a food that's bad, like candy or something like that. And I have it timed down in my head. I'm literally looking at my daughter Sawyer like, yep, she's up there. She's feeling great. You can tell because they're like, you know, like, and then I'm like, oh, it's been about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then and it comes crashing down, and she's just miserable, fighting with her brother, yelling, screaming on the floor because poor thing, her poor brain is just getting wrecked. She's like, it's like I just gave her drugs and then said, there's no more. Sorry. Like, I got you
Yeah.
hooked, but the supply's out now. And her brain's just screaming. So it's not fair. It's not cool. It also explains why I probably slept at like, 12 o'clock on my desk at school all the
Mhm.
time. I know you obviously were not the type of person to sleep in class. I think one look at you and be like, no. She was at the front of the class. I was actually probably copying off her. But but me and my boys, we get done with lunch and I'd be like, yeah, math class, boom. And it's because my blood sugar was probably crashing. I just was, anyways.
Yeah.
Kids. If I believe, Daniel, I truly believe that if there's going to be something to be done about this whole diabetes and obesity epidemic, we got to start with the kids. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there ain't nobody helping them out. There is
No.
no. There, all the
They're
institutions
just
are.
trying to give him Ozempic. It's like,
Yeah,
what about taking away sugar at
yeah,
how about taking away sugar in schools?
it's
Like no processed sugar in schools. Like stop feeding the kids drugs that are impacting their ability to learn. Just like you said, your child is hyperactive when the blood sugar's crashing, and then there's what sort of symptoms do you see like that
in the
from
dark.
your kids? Yeah, in these
I
blood
eat
sugar
some crazy food.
symptoms
Oh yeah, well, I mean, if I feed them,
from the kids.
yeah, like when I feed them sugar,
Yeah.
the first hour as the blood sugar goes up, they're just flying through that sugar, just running around the house. It's a performance enhancing food. My daughter will literally not stop moving, and she's just all over the place. Let's do this. And then when the blood sugar starts, she burns through it, and the blood sugar starts crashing back down. She becomes a monster. I love her to death, but it is crazy sometimes how she can literally go psychotic episodes of like she wants more and more and more. And my son's not like that because I was a lot more strict with my son, and my other daughter's only one, so I'm not. The middle
Yeah.
child's the one where I kind of was like, damn, I let that get away too quick, and she's only four.
Yeah.
Like it's
Have you
crazy, but
ever considered putting her on keto?
I'm gonna no. I've just kind of secretly made. No, I'm not. I'm not. I would never, ever, 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 ever put my kid on a diet. I have too many thoughts about it. I too many like
The
too
only
many.
reason I ask
Especially
is
my
because,
daughter.
sorry, the only reason I ask is because I know that there's a kiddo who I follow and she has epilepsy and she was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and kids with autism and like there's a bunch of
yeah.
kids who do it for like
That's different. That's
yeah,
different.
yeah, different
That's so.
for sure.
I always say necessity governs the world. People only do what's absolutely necessary. It's necessary for those kids to do keto, right?
Right,
Like,
for
yeah.
sure.
My daughter just needs for me to be a little more strict without taking away all the fun,
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff. She's only
Mm-hmm.
four, and I'm not going to be that dad. Everybody always thinks I am too. Like, oh, he must not give his kids anything like this. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
perfect, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let my kids be kids. But I've gotten caught with. It's just so easy. Like, here's a snack. Here's a snack. We're out. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just convenient to just give in and just
Mm-hmm.
and you make the wrong decision, and next thing you know, you got a big problem on your hands. Luckily,
Yeah.
my daughter's only four, so but I'll tell you the truth: berries, for any parents that are listening, berries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries are what I'm currently doing to satisfy her sweet tooth type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's been really helpful. My kids love seeds. Unfortunately, my
Mm-hmm.
son's deathly allergic to nuts, so I can't have nuts in the house. But those are also good that kids will absolutely eat.
Mm-hmm.
Beef jerky, my kids will eat the hell out of beef jerky. Those smoked sausages, like you don't realize your kid will eat this stuff.
Yeah.
Like my daughter loves cheese, like
Mm-hmm.
all different types of cheese. So there are. It's just you just get caught being lazy as parents, I think, and succumbing to them because it's so hard to say no. But then you realize, damn, now I got a problem and I'm gonna have to fix it. But I'm not gonna be too aggressive about it. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well, I mean, I heard some people do like a kitty charcuterie board, and so you can
yeah,
have different like rolled up cold cuts or whatever people call them, lunch meats, and have some berries and have some
yep,
nuts or seeds or
yeah.
like
Oh yeah,
cheeses and things like that. And
oh yeah.
so giving these as options and not saying, oh, we're out of this, we don't have it anymore. And so sometimes the easiest way is to not have it, and then but yeah, I can't imagine. It sounds really challenging. And I remember
And there's a
working.
lot of people. There's a lot of families that
Mhm.
a don't even have knowledge of what they're actually doing because they're looking at all these foods and they're like, oh, it's only got Cheez-Its. There's only 100 calories, and calorie number is huge on the back of the Cheez-Its box. That's all the number. That's all they want you to look at.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that on
Yep.
some of these bad kids' foods?
They're
It's like,
huge.
oh, the calorie number is huge and bold, and a parent's like, oh, it can't be that bad. They just don't know any better, unfortunately. Like, they just don't really know.
Right.
And so, but it's a big problem. And I might be the one to do it, to be honest with you. I'm done trying to help adults out, man.
Yeah.
Change is so hard. It's so hard to get, it's so difficult to get not only yourself to change, but to get other people to do it. And part of me is like, man, as my kids get older, I might shift my focus and just nail the kids, just save the kids.
Yeah. We need it.
Starting with my own, and here I am, the blood sugar king, and I got to have an intervention with my daughter about sugar.
Yeah, I mean, but this is one of the things that I think people are overlooking. They're like, "Oh yeah, candy's for kids. Like it's a kid, just give them candy." And I think that they think that it's harmless.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we spend our whole adult lives trying to not have the thing, not have the candy, not have the chocolate, and heal our relationship with food, and be on diets and lose weight and all the things. So it's not as, I'm not shaming anybody, but it's also not this innocent thing that we need to pay attention to what we're giving our kids, modeling, getting them in the kitchen with us as much as we can. But of course, sugar has addictive properties. And so I know that for me, that I would say that my only piece of advice is that what happened for me was I used to struggle with binge eating because I would eat like a toaster strudel, one toaster strudel, or one Eggo waffle, or one packet of oatmeal, and I'd go to school, and then I wouldn't eat again until lunch, where I'd proceed to have a yogurt with like fruit and granola or whatever, which was very low fat, really sugary. That was probably the only protein I had, up until dinner. And then I had like a granola bar and a Capri Sun. And so, I mean,
You were like a child. You were eating like you probably did when you were a kid. You literally just described what my mom would buy me when I used to have, like,
that was my school lunches I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I was in school, this is how I used to eat in school. So yeah, so this is how I used to eat in school. And so I'd have like this like giant spike in the morning and a crash, and was probably, struggling through some of my classes. And then, you spike again at home, and then I'd come home and be like eating all the cookies and all the ice cream and all the snacks we had in the whole house because I was ravenous, because I was hungry, and because my blood sugar was probably dropping all the time. And so obviously when I got older, it got a little better, but I was still doing the whole wheat bread and the whole grain granola bars and all the things that weren't helping, and I was still struggling. I had a lot of hypoglycemia. My blood sugar was constantly low, so I was constantly grazing, constantly feeling hungry. And what stopped all that, what stopped all the food noise and all the like the sugar dragon barking in my ear, like, go get something else, go have another, cookie, like, it was finally getting into ketosis and being fueled by fat and having that stable blood sugar where my body could actually use the fat as fuel. And I was like, wow, I'm really in the mood for an avocado. Like, what? Who am I? Like, it was just that finally my body got all that satiation from the other energy source. And so I think that if we can't take away the carbs, at least crowd out some of the carbs by filling them up on protein and fat as much as possible, and then not serving the carbs. So let's say there's potatoes for dinner, everyone eat the rest of their meal and then have the potatoes last, not because, like you said, we're still going to get a blood sugar spike, but we might automatically eat less of it because we're so satiated from all those other foods. And so I think that crowding some of it out and then giving those stabilizing blood sugar, foods can be somewhat helpful. So maybe, like, I've heard, I have a friend who is a mom, and she's like, can you just find some protein first? And like, he goes around, he's like, I found some. And like, he knows what protein is, like animal protein. And so he has like cheese, and he has, like a, turkey slice in his hand. And so he eats that, and then he can have the snack. And I thought that was really smart, because it's like we're prioritizing the foods that are going to build muscles and stabilize our blood sugar and make us feel full. So then we're not wanting to snack all day long, but still allowing that piece to be a kid. So if any of that helps.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah, it
I
would be
know,
great.
absolutely. It's great advice.
Yeah.
Um, it's whatever works for you. You just kind of at a certain point realize something's got to be done. You can talk about it all you want. You can listen to
Yep.
as many podcasts as you want. You can go down as many rabbit holes and read as many books as you want about it. You can educate yourself to the tilt. If you don't start doing something about it, then your time's ticking. And that's
Yeah.
just the sad reality. 1 in 3 people are pre-diabetic in this country. That's crazy.
It
One out of
is.
3 people are pre-diabetic, and apparently most people don't even realize it.
Yep.
So you should consider yourself lucky if you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to Danielle's stuff. You should consider yourself lucky that you found the truth and you found the answer. You don't have to starve yourself, but there are a lot of things you also have to work. You have to kind of like reprogram yourself. The good news is it wasn't your fault, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not. You can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
You were just given bad advice, maybe some bad genetics here and there, whatever. But you didn't fail at weight loss before because you were lazy or you were a glutton. You just got the wrong advice. So if you're listening, I think that you should consider yourself blessed and do something about it because you got the
Yeah.
answer now. It's the
Right.
answer. You can modify it, like you said before. You can take it and modify it all you want, but
Yeah.
you know, the facts remain. You can't just sit and pound carbs all day long.
That's right.
As much as I wish you could, and
You
I
heard
can,
it here.
and I can do it. But that's a funny thing, though. I say, yeah, I can do it because I've gotten away my whole career being able to do it, but I feel like crap. Like the older I get, like I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna get fat. Why not just eat all these carbs? It's good for building muscle, but man, like inflammation, you feel swelling in the joints, you feel lethargic. You know,
Yeah.
I feel I can't forget that's how I feel the carbs the most. They don't make me fat compared to most people, but they really throw my mood off and really I just know my body I don't need them.
Yeah. My mood, my focus, my energy would be up and down. I'm thinking about food. Then I start craving. It's just like, who needs this?
So
It's
do it.
like, yeah, it is really just something. It's really unbelievable when you do have that clear mind because your brain is fueled by fat and or it's metabolically flexible and you're not drowning it out in all these that noise of the carbs. And yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it is not your
People
fault
never
that you're
experience
this. What'd you say?
and some people will never experience that. Like they're just on
Yeah.
this roller coaster for life and they won't experience it. What were you saying? Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just saying that it just like you said, it's not our fault that we're this way. Like look at what they're selling, look at what they're doing in schools. Look at like it's not our fault that we were told that like just eat brown rice instead of white rice. Like that's not helpful information, but it is our responsibility now that we know to do better because we are bankrupting the healthcare system and like people are suffering. I used to work in a nursing home as a speech therapist and I saw people suffering before their time and it was a slow, prolonged decline because we could keep you alive for a real long time, but
Yeah.
but in a hospital, in a nursing home bed where someone's wiping you and you can't even get up and like walk outside. Like that to me, that scared the bejesus out of me and made me really exercise all the control that I have. We can't control everything, but there's a lot that is within our control. And I think that's where these continuous glucose monitors, they give back our autonomy and they give back the control because when you are hooked on sugar like your 4-year old she is controlled by the sugar. It's like a marionette, like a puppet, like you're just controlled by it. You're
I'm
at the
sorry.
whim.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
you're at
who are you? Like what
yeah.
happened?
Yeah, you're at the whim of these spikes and crashes. And when you finally unlock those sugar shackles, like the name of my podcast, it's you are not controlled by the food anymore. And it is so liberating to be like, oh, there was nothing wrong with me. It was just my blood sugar this whole time. So
Amen. That's it.
yeah,
And most people have no idea, so they blame themselves. Like, oh,
yeah,
I couldn't lose weight because I had to go, they're told they have to go starve themselves basically and go run. Who's going to do that for a long
yeah,
period of time? Who's going to go run on a treadmill for an hour every day with some trainers? Like, yeah, it's like, but this is the truth, and I appreciate what you do. I love following you and the stuff you put out.
thank you, likewise.
I respect you tremendously because you're walking the walk. Like you're not just out there giving advice that you don't follow, and like you've been through the trenches before. You've had to question yourself and all those beliefs that you've had before, and
Yep.
I think you rock, and you definitely changing a lot of lives. So I'm
Thank you.
glad.
You too. And I'd love to, maybe collaborate on some of this kid stuff because I think that it really is such an area of need to
Yeah.
educate parents
Yeah.
on how to feed their kids, with what is in their control. Of course, there's things like we just said out of their control, but doing the best we can to give our kids the best fighting chance because there's just, I mean, 1 in 3 of our generation maybe is like, or and older are pre-diabetic, but what about these kiddos? Like it's going to be,
I just got goosebumps when you said
9
that.
out of 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're done. They're doomed. They're
Yeah.
absolutely doomed, and it's our fault
Yeah.
for our all, and the people that came before us. And
I
I
think
just
it's a
got
system, but
well, I
I
got
think it's the whole
goosebumps.
system, but
So I'm going to war, for
yes.
sure. And the kids are going to be saved. So I'd love to have you
Yeah.
by my side. That'd be amazing. Let's do it. I mean,
Yeah. Awesome.
and you can make a huge impact not only for the kid but for the parents too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nobody. Yeah, nobody wants to
Mm.
see their kid have to. They're just not
Yeah.
informed,
Right.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and they can do better. So,
Yeah. All right, Jason, well, tell us where we can find you and what you have coming down the pipeline.
um, well, I'm about to go have to cook dinner for 3 of my kids. That's what's coming down the pipeline for me. I've got 3 kids home for the next like 2 weeks because apparently I'm in Florida and you get out for 3 weeks for Christmas. Yeah, I guess on Instagram I'm just Jason Wittrock, Wittrock. So yeah, but I really enjoyed this doing this with you. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun and cool to like put a face and have a conversation. We're always DM
Yeah.
and
DM. Yeah.
yeah, it's like now I feel like we're friends now, so that's cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And it really made me laugh when you said that you would have been copying off of me and me being in the front row because now I have this all like my childhood trauma of all the football kids used to be in my AP stat class and they used to call me like I'd be at football parties, they're like AP stat and I'm like this is so embarrassing.
Yeah, no,
So I just had like a little replay
a little
from high school, so thanks for
I
that.
wasn't all the way that guy, but I knew you were the generous girl that was super smart and pretty and would just kind of help people out. And I'm not saying I would have taken advantage, but we'd have been friends.
We'd have been friends. All right, cool. Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
We
Well,
are friends. We are
it was,
friends, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is
thanks so much. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, what you're putting out there into the world, and I appreciate you sacrificing your body for
yeah,
all
no
of this
problem.
because I will not do it. Like, I want to do all these things. I did an adrenal cocktail. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like 4 ounces of orange juice, 4 ounces of coconut water with some salt and a little bit of collagen peptides to help reduce the spike of the blood sugar. And they say
Oh
that
yeah.
this is going to be good for your adrenal health. And I'm sure you're rolling your eyes because you know that that's going to cause a giant blood sugar spike as it did. It spiked me like 58 points. I crashed 67 points.
Oh
I
wow.
was super shaky
That's the
and
danger.
I know, and my whole blood sugar the whole rest of the day was super volatile. Like my alarm kept beeping because my blood sugar was like in the toilet. My blood sugar the next day was worse. And it's
Oh,
just like,
wow.
yeah,
I,
so
I,
I'm like, this is the last time I experiment like that.
yeah, and I bet if every single person in the United States wore a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks, like it was mandatory by the U.S.
Hmm.
government, you have to wear a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks. I think that alone would change everything.
I think it
You
would
know,
too. I think it would change
hun-
everything.
you see those graphs, and you're afraid at a certain point when I first started wearing it, I was like afraid to eat because I'm like, oh shit, like I don't want that again. Like, you actually consciously make better decisions about the types of foods that you eat. You don't
Hmm.
even care about how many calories are in it because you
Yeah.
realize it doesn't matter. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? No, but
Yeah.
I feel we could go on and on and on, and
Yeah, for sure.
we still will. But thanks for everybody
Yeah.
that listened, and God bless
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks for being here and go make dinner. Enjoy your time with your
Yeah.
family. All right.
All right.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right.